Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Friday, July the 17th. Race number 7 at Saratoga. We are kicking off a 50-cent pick 4 with the $85,000 Delarose Stakes. Let's take a look at the field. We're going a mile on the inner turf. This race for fillies and mares. You can download free formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Access them, handicap along with us. And I'm just going to have to talk to Chad Brown the next time I see him. Mike, I'm a little disappointed. He only has 50% of the 8 horses entered for turf. Bridlewood, Cat the 5 is main track only. I was expecting more.
Yeah, I mean, at some point it's probably going to get there, so don't worry about it. Just wait till later in the meet. You'll probably will get more. Listen, he's got 4 good ones in here, Dan. You know, I guess I want to say maybe they're not that easy to separate, the 4 Chad horses. I certainly had a clear preference of the 4 of them, but I can understand people making cases for the others.
Let's throw up the Timeform US pace projector because one of Chad's horses is expected to make the lead, and a pretty clear lead according to Timeform US. That's the number 9 Blowout. And Blowout's best running style is when she is able to get to the front and relax on the lead. We saw that in her most recent race, the Valley View. And if you leave Blowout alone, I'm not worried about layoffs with any Chad Brown train runner. If you let this filly get a breather, she could take you a long way.
Oh, yeah, she certainly can. I mean, you're right. That is her running star, or at least it turned out to be sort of later in the year last year as a 3-year-old, where they just were putting her on the front every week. She had a bunch of clear leads in those races. Couldn't really hold on most of the time, but she's a very dangerous horse in this race. I guess we'll see what happens with the 8 Zenobia, because they took a good hold of her last time in the Bogey to rate her, but they don't have to do that. She has shown speed in the past.
Catch a Bid won the risk-averse at Saratoga last year over this course, over yielding going, and finished behind Blowout in the Valley View. Probably had a more difficult trip than Valley View in that race, and then came back off the layoff. And I think that's just the kind of perfect prep Chad was looking for. The filly really didn't have to be used hard. She's not really a speed horse. The fact that she was able to get to the lead, and not only the lead, but just an easy, uncontested lead, she wasn't getting beat in that situation. I think she's going to be a lot tighter for this performance.
Yeah, me too. I mean, you know, in some ways you could look at that return off the layoff and just think, well, they basically handed the race to her at a short price. She didn't have to do anything. And so, you know, how do you know how good she's actually going to be? But on the other hand, she never really broke a sweat in that race, Dan. Paired up her career top buyer of 88. I feel like there's really forward to go for this horse. And I liked every one of her races last year.
Another horse making the second start of the season is French Stakes winner, the number 2, Noor Sahara, 4-1 on the morning line. Let's watch Noor Sahara's North American debut and first start for Chad Brown. She's the number 10 in this race. She was pushing the pace on the outside, and she is going to finish third. She's going to drive by this long shot pace setter. It looks like she's on her way, Mike, and she just gets tired at the end.
Yeah, it was a 1 1/8 off the layoff, and maybe at the end of the day, Dan, she just doesn't want to go this far. They bet her in that race like they thought she was going to win for fun. She tracked that big long shot on the lead, and as it turned out, she never got by Vortex Road in there. Vortex Road held on for second. Noor Sahara could not get by her for third, but it was a head bob. Listen, it wasn't a terrible performance. Cutting back to a mile could really help her. I can see this horse running a little bit better in this race.
The number 3 passing out 7-2 on the morning line is a filly like many Shug McGahee trained horses that has improved as they have gotten older. Her 2 breakout performances this year, Beyer speed figures of 90, 94, a big win against substandard competition at Tampa Bay Downs to kick off her season. And then this race, a good third behind Chad Brown's Rushing Fall in the Grade 3 Bogey. Of course, Rushing Fall came back to win the Jenny Wiley, a Grade 1 at Keeneland with a 103 Beyer. Considering this was a big step up in class for passing out, it was a good effort.
Yeah, I mean, I guess she ran fine in there, Dan. I don't really, know what to do with this horse. I do respect that she's taking steps forward, and obviously Shug seems to bring these horses along very well. Here she is. She's going to get third in here. I just sort of felt like it was a little bit of a suck-up third. They just rode the rail with her the entire way. She never made a move into the race. And she only gets third because Got Stormy is completely done here the last 1/8 of a mile. I don't know. It didn't make me want to bet her back in her next race. I know that she won 2 back at Tampa, but I didn't love that race either. I was just kind of against her in here.
Yeah, she is getting class relief, though, Mike, and she is turning back to her best distance. I think there might be a forward move for her. 7-2 is fair against this field for passing out. Clara Peters is the number 4 going out for trainer Brad Cox. This one's done nothing wrong in 2 North American starts for Brad. Came from off the pace to win this race, going 7 furlongs at Belmont last time out. A race in which the third-place finisher came back to run second for the non-winners of 2 other than with an 82 Beyer speed figure. Now, Clara Peters, again, likes to rally from the back of the pack, and we are going to see her start rolling at the end of this race.
Yeah, she got a good trip in this race. The pace was fairly contested. The horses that run second and third were dueling the whole stretch. She got clear. She came with a good run and ran them down right at the end. Prior to that at Fairgrounds off the left end, I thought she ran really well in that race around 2 turns. She had a tough trip in that race and just missed at the end. It looks like she has plenty of potential, that's for sure.
A lot of natural talent, but while passing out is dropping in class, here's the class quiz perhaps for Clara Peters, who, when she was over there in England, really never faced the best of the best. She was more of a handicapper type, and she's running 2 optional claimers to begin her North American journey. Bridlewood Cat, the 5, has entered main track only, so we will move to the 6, Viadera, also going out for Chad Brown, and we're not going to fault her for her last race. She caught Newspaper of Record, who has just all of a sudden gotten back to the Newspaper of Record of old, and it's almost impossible to beat Newspaper of Record over yielding or good or soft ground, and that's what she got in the Intercontinental. Of course, Newspaper of Record came back to win the Just a Game with a triple-digit Beyer speed figure. Viadera, I thought, ran a sneaky good race. She didn't break that well. She finished with a little bit of interest, something to build on.
Yeah, I agree. I think we look at her kind of the same way, Dan. She didn't break great in that race. They did not rush her at all early in that race. Rosario just sort of let her find a stride, and she was racing on at the end. She was never going to win, but I thought just as a kicking off point for her stateside career, I thought she ran fine in that race. I like her a little bit in this race.
And she's 2 for 2 at a mile. It just seems like maybe that's the perfect distance for her. Hogan's Holiday is the 7. Big price on David Aragona's morning line, 30-1, and deservedly so. We know Hogan's Holiday. She's been around for a while. She is a mare that needs a lot of pace because she doesn't have much early speed at all. No match for Mitchell Road in her most recent start, a horse that came back to earn a couple of stakes placings. But Hogan's Holiday occasionally will run that sort of big Beyer speed figure, although the 91 Sheeran 3 back at Saratoga might have sort of been one of those suck-up finishes.
Yeah, that probably was. I mean, we'll see if the trip works out for her. I mean, I thought it was, possible to make cases for a lot of horses in this race. I really couldn't make one for her.
Zenobia is a graded stakes winner. Let's not hold her in light regard. She's 10-1 on the morning line, and when she won the Athenia 3 starts back, she did it when John Velasquez got aggressive with her. Then they turned her back on synthetic in the Bessarabian, and she probably doesn't like that surface. In her first start of the layoff, you mentioned that they made a concerted effort to rate her off the pace against rushing fall. You might be right, Mike. Maybe Manny Franco is going to be told by Jonathan Thomas, get aggressive. Let's get her back to what we know she likes to do, and that is racing freely and perhaps on the lead.
Yeah, I mean, in those 2 races at the end of last year at Belmont, that's exactly what they did. They just sort of turned her loose early in those races, and I thought she actually ran well both times. So I'm just not going to be too hard on her for that race off the layoff last time. They did take a good hold of her. She never made any kind of a run in that race. It just sort of gave way in the stretch. It wasn't a good performance, Dan, but I just don't feel like you have to hold it against her. She's going to be a good price in this race.
Blowout earned multiple graded stakes placings last year at Saratoga, although, Mike, I found no excuse with either loss in the Lake George and Lake Placid, where I believe she had Candy Trips on the lead both times and just succumbed to better horses at the end. She then won the Pebbles, getting a little bit of a drop in class at Belmont, and then she ran in this race, the Valley View, going a mile and a 16th, and she got to the lead. She drifts a little bit off the rail, and she's just going to be run down late by Lady Prancelot, a solid horse that came back to win the Grade 1 American Oaks with a 91 Beyer. Lady Prancelot was one of 3 next out winners to exit this race. I thought Blowout was pretty game to hold second. She certainly fits this race from a Beyer speed figure standpoint, and she should be able to get to the lead or sit second off Zenobia because, as you mentioned in the open, she does not need the lead to be successful.
That she does not. She might find herself there just because there isn't any other speed in here, but we'll see what happens. Listen, I'm not going to knock this horse, Dan. I suspect she'll be ready off the layoff and she could get a good trip. And all those things that you already said are true about her. She's a nice fit in here. Just not a big fan of hers. If she's going to be a short price in this race, I would just rather look elsewhere.
I was just going to say that as we throw up our picks, I've always liked Blowout a lot more than you. I think she's going to be ready for this. I think she's going to be ready to take over when the field turns into the stretch. Catch a Bid has a tremendous amount of upside, and I believe she's yet to show her best race. There's a 90 buyer speed figure or more in her future. She hasn't run it yet, and maybe she'll run it on Friday at 9-2 on the morning line.
Yeah, that's certainly what I'm hoping, Dan. I did feel like she could be a very fair price in this race. And if she is, I want to be betting on her.
1, 4, 6, and 9 for Mike. 9, 3, 1, and 4 for me. We agree on one thing. We think that Chad will win the De La Rose, the Friday race of the day, kicking off a 50-cent pick 4 with an approximate post time of 4:40 Eastern. Good luck.